Hello, YouTube. I hope that you all are doing well. I just came on to share what God revealed to me in my study time yesterday. So I'll be coming from Joshua 5 and 6 today, and I'll be reading from the NIV version. So Joshua 5, verse 1 says, "Now when all the Amorite kings west of the Jordan and all the Canaanite kings along the coast heard how the Lord had dried up the Jordan before the Israelites until they had crossed over, their hearts melted in fear, and they no longer had the courage to face the Israelites." So the Canaanites thought that the Jordan would slow the Israelites down. They don't want them to enter Canaan because Canaan is the promised land. And so some of you are very close to your promise from God, and there are people watching and thinking like, oh, they'll never get there. They'll never get there. But once God intervenes, the tables will quickly turn. So the Israelites now are crossing over the Jordan, and the Canaanites that they once feared are now fearing them because God switched it. Okay? So let me go down to verse 9. And verse 9 says, "Then the Lord said to Joshua, 'Today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you.' So the place has been called Gilgal to this day." So basically God is saying, forget about that disapproval. Forget about that disappointment in Egypt. Shake that off. We're getting ready to conquer a new land. Forget about those people that hurt you before. Forget about what didn't work out. Forget about all the things you complained about, or just forget about any disappointment. Shake it off now. Shake it off, because I'm getting ready to give you something new. So if you continue to read down into verse 10, "On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened bread and roasted grain. The manna stopped the day after they ate this food from the land. There was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate the produce of Canaan." So when you get to the promised land, you won't even need what you needed in the desert, in that dry place, because you're going into a land that's flowing with milk and honey. You're getting ready to walk into a promise, and there's not going to be any lack there. So you don't need that anymore. So some of you are hanging on to old skills, old ways of surviving, that you got to prepare yourself like, I'm not going to need this anymore when I get to this promise that God has for me. So let's get down to verse 13. "Now when Joshua is nearing Jericho, which is the first place within Canaan for him to conquer. So now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, 'Are you for us or for our enemies?' 'Neither,' he replied, 'but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come.' Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, 'What message does my Lord have for his servant?' The commander of the Lord's army replied, 'Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy.' And Joshua did so." So in verses 13 through 15, when Joshua sees this man with the sword, it's easy to focus on the commander saying the place where you are standing is holy. It's easy to focus on that. But what stood out to me was he said, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" And he said, "Neither. I'm not for you. I'm not for your enemies. But I'm a commander of the Lord's army." So that lets me know that God has invested so much in the people that he's chosen and the people that he's called, that he's going to show up. God is going to show up to make sure you get the victory. God is going to show up to make sure that his plan and his purpose is fulfilled. God is going to show up to make sure that you get your promise. So then I started to read Joshua 6. And Joshua didn't just charge into Jericho and take over the land. He waited for the Lord's instructions first. So sometimes God will show us the promise and we're ready. Like, okay, I see it. I'm ready, God. I want that now. So I'm getting ready to take over. But you have to listen for instruction first. So he told them to march around once for 6 days. And then on the 7th day to march around the city 7 times. And when he would hear the trumpet, to give a loud shout. So let's go to Joshua 6, verse 20. And it says, when the trumpet sounded, the army shouted. And at the sound of the trumpet, when the man gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. The wall collapsed when they shouted. So when you have a wall in your way, sometimes all you got to do is shout. Listen for your instructions so you can know where to go and what to do and how to do it. But sometimes all you got to do is shout to make the wall come down. If there's a mountain in your way, shout unto the Lord that mountain be removed. Hallelujah. In the name of Jesus. Sometimes all it takes is a loud shout. Cry out to God to break those chains. Everything that's trying to hold you back, everything that's trying to hinder you, shout. Let God hear your voice. Let God hear your voice. He's already shown up for you divinely. He's already shown up to guarantee your victory. Now let him hear your voice. In verse 21, it says, they devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. Everything in Jericho had to be destroyed. Everything that was a part of the old ways, their evil practices, their idolatry that they were following had to be destroyed. Because God didn't want the Israelites in their new land to be contaminated by the old evil ways. So when you get to a new place in God, when you accept Christ and are born again and become new, when you are walking into your promise, you have to shake off the old and embrace the new. If you have to stop talking to certain people, if you have to stop watching certain things on the TV so that you are not contaminated in this new space with God, in this new territory that God is allowing you to walk in and to flow in, you have to do whatever is necessary to make sure that you're not contaminated. You're not contaminated with old sin, that you're not contaminated or enticed by new sin that maybe it wasn't your thing, but now you're in this area and, it's introduced to you. God doesn't want that to be a part of your new. So that's why everything that was in Jericho had to be destroyed, because this was to be the Israelites' promised land. A clean slate, a clean place, a holy place. And let me skip over to Luke 5. So just to confirm that. And no one puts Luke 5, verses 37 to 39. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine will burst the wineskins and be spilled and ruin the wineskins. But new wine must be put into new wineskins, and both are preserved. And no one, having drunk old wine, immediately desires new, for he says, the old is better. So usually there's a process for change. But sometimes God does it right away, and all you have to do is let go. All you have to do is let go of those things that try to keep you bound. Those things that try to make, like, ooh, well, if I just go back to doing that, like just a little bit, it'll be okay. I had fun when I used to do this. Maybe I could do that once a week, whatever that thing is for you. Maybe I could do that once a week. Maybe I can talk to this person again. But it didn't work out with that person before, and God already revealed that they weren't the one. So there's no reason to talk to them again. There is no reason to go back to the old habits. Embrace the new. Embrace the new. You're so much closer than you think. So like while the Israelites were in the desert wandering around for 40 years, I really believe that was unnecessary. They didn't have to stay in a desert for 40 years. Their lack of faith kept them in the desert for 40 years. God had already parted the Red Sea for them under Moses, but they still lacked faith. They complained about the food. They started worshiping false gods. God was not pleased with that. So not only did he have to wash away the disappointment from Egypt, raise up a new leader, he also had to wash away the sin that was in their promised land, so that when they began to inhabit that area, they would not be contaminated. You're closer than you think. You're closer than you think. Imagine how many people, over in Canaan were watching the Israelites and knowing they're so close. They're so close. But the only thing stopping them was the Jordan. The Jordan was stopping them. And they thought it would slow them down. But when God dried it up, Jesus, when God intervenes, there's nothing that the devil can do, no enemy can do to stop you from crossing over into the new territory, from crossing over into a new place. The enemy will try to distract. He'll try to distract you. He'll try to bring up everything he can to attack your faith, to make you feel like you're never going to get the promise that God gave you, but you're closer than you think. I just want somebody to know you're so much closer than you think. Do not doubt God's abilities to fulfill his promise. His word will not return unto him void. If he said it, he'll do it. You're this close. Don't give up now. Don't give up now. No matter what it looks like, do not give up now. I'm telling you, God will show up for you. He's invested in all that he has placed on the inside of you. He's so invested in it. All you got to do is let go. Let go of the old. Let go. Let go of doubt. Let go of fear. Walk into the new. Walk into the new. He's already prepared the place for you. He's already made a way. Walk into it. You're closer than you think. Until next time. Bye, YouTube.